Oh yeah, how do you get started? So we talked about inspiration so far. Hopefully this can be the tactical side of it. So what is the first actionable step you can take right away? What are some ways you can build in public? I wrote a long post on this. I'll drop the link to this later. Also, I'll drop the link to this whole deck if anybody wants to play around with it later. But these are the 10 simple BIP strategies I recommend. I think there's 25, 30 if I like really pause and think about, but the smallest low hanging fruit ones are these. So let's go through a few. I'm not going to go through everything because in the lieu of time, but let's do simple ones like create screenshots, right? There's something so magnetic about looking at somebody else's screenshot. I cannot put a finger on what it is, but I love that shit. I'm sure many of you feel the same. You could tell me verbally all the things, but if you just drop a screenshot of something that's happening, it's a lot more curious. And I wish more founders did this, but it's not just people think the screenshots should have to be only about product design, like mockups for a Figma. No, anything can be a screenshot, right? Like this on the left, you have Paulie Cubian in 2020 October sharing MRR from 3.3K. And that was like super exciting at the time and super, wow, that's very interesting. Like this guy at this company doing this. And today they're, I think, at 12 million in revenue annual. So it's become a huge company. But I'm so glad he did it because it left a breadcrumb. So if you go back or he goes back, there's clearly a series of breadcrumbs of the history. Same thing with me. I've done so many screenshots. I love anytime I have a document in front of me and I'm like, oh, this could be an interesting thing for someone to look at. I'll take a screenshot, set it out. As long as it's not like some super secretive company strategy, which I don't have a lot of them anyway. But yeah, so that's a simple low-hanging thing. Just look at what you have in Google Docs or Notion and share a screenshot and say, use the word sneak peek or some kind of curiosity generating context. That leads us to sneak peeks. Right? So Ankur does a great job, and I've done a couple versions of this, where he will say what's happening or what's about to happen, and he'll ask the audience, what do you love to see? What do you love to hear about? This is amazing. And even if you don't get hundreds of responses and replies, that's not the point. It's just he took something mundane in his day, like he's about to go filming for some education, which is anyway what he was going to do. He made it slightly interesting for the Twitter audience. Same thing with me. I had a interview with Jake back when I was at day one, and I could have not said anything, by the way. It's just on my calendar. But what I did was I said, oh, this might be an interesting thing. So I just said from the lens of got kidnapped by Jake. And so try to be a little funny. Try to be a little, this is me in real life, by the way. That's exactly how I would text my wife or my best friend. And I think the more I'm learning towards how to be a great creator on the internet, I'm realizing that you just have to treat your audience like you treat your friends, except maybe not say controversial things if you don't want to, but it's no different, right? So if you, as much as you invest in them and keep them in the loop, they want to reciprocate it too by following you or offering you advice and tips and all that. Here's another small win, another small low-hanging fruit, which is, okay, sometimes there are days where, okay, nothing interesting going on your calendar. There's not much to tweet about. You're burnt out in terms of insights and advice. At the very minimum, pick one of your hundreds of customers, give them a shout out. It's so easy. And people love this shit. People eat up. Every time I give a shout out, people are like, so thank you. It means a lot. I was like, I didn't do nothing. I just took 5 seconds. Right. But think about that. How easy is that? I feel like every founder has a moral obligation to give a shout out to the first 100 paying customers, including me. And I've not done a great job this year. I should do better because at the very minimum, that other person is getting a little bit of appreciation from you, recognition, but also they may get a little bit of a traffic from you. If that person gets one lead from you and gets converted paid customer, you made their day. You made their sales work easy. How easy is that, right? And also you're elevating your brand by talking about who your customers are because people then associate those customers with your brand. So easiest BIP win, that one to me. The other one is share small wins, right? So every day you have something or the other that's a small win. Like you talk about this shit usually on Slack, somebody on my team says, oh my God, we had this customer say this nice thing. And then we're like dead on Slack. It never makes it to the public arena. And I'm like, why not? I think I do a very good job of this one. If you follow me, you'll know that I constantly force myself to share a small win. Unfortunately, if you notice, most people use social media the opposite way. Most people use social media to rant and complain, which are turnoffs. Imagine having a friend who you sit down for lunch with and constantly he or she is ranting. You can take it for 5 minutes and do you want to go back to the lunch every day? No. But if you sit down with a friend and that person is telling you a small win they had, it could be a small family update or small like a sales update or small whatever, you're like, wow, this person has gratitude. This is exciting, magnetic. So it's very simple. It's not rocket science, right? But we don't do that. The other thing is, like, back to Murtaza's point about sharing vulnerable parts, like most content on the internet is superficial. Just accept that. So if you go one layer deep, you're a thoughtful person. If you go 2 layers deep, you're like a very confident, secure person. If you go 3 layers deep, you're a fucking legend. That's how I saw it. I've seen it in both as a receiving end and on the other end too. If you see, there's like Jason, one of the guys I follow, he talks about how he was doing taxes and all of his revenue in 2022 was $6,000. And then he was acknowledging the fact that this is hard AF, which is true, right? Indie hacking is hard full time. This year, despite all my brand, all the great network I have, all the great accomplishments I have, this year, I think in July, I had a whole day filled with anxiety. Highs are great, lows are low. I didn't make any revenue in July in the last 11 days, right? Which is for me, like my egotistical mind wants to make revenue every day. I was very bummed by that. I shared that. And I called my mom, and the rest of the tweet talks about what happened and how did I overcome that. I got so many DMs that day saying, thank you for acknowledging it. Because usually you seem like you're crushing it. Yeah, of course, most days I crush it, but there are also days where I suck or something happens. And funny enough, somebody who saw this tweet went and bought something for me. I forgot what he bought, but something. And I thought, thank you for breaking the, what do you call the famine? Is it right? So I'm like, thank you. So you never know the power of being vulnerable and open on the internet. The other thing I want to say, and the last one, Perry, is share what you know. There are so many people in this room who know more things about topics that I have no clue about, more than me on those topics. But we just keep it to ourselves because we think that everybody else probably knows this, but reality is not. The internet's 8 billion people, or the world is 8 billion people, and most people don't know what you might know. So what's dead obvious for you, maybe someone's deadlock. I can tell you right now, in this call itself, there are 20 questions in your head that are deadlocks that I've solved for in my life in the last 5 years in building in public, right? Like that building in public theme. So if I chose to wake up and share some advice on building in public, I'm already helping, because even though it's obvious to me and the two people around me, there are people out there who may not know that.